Hello, welcome to Masters IGCSE ICT Theory Tip number 3. Today I'm going to look at a May and June paper. This is version 1 of the theory paper number 1. And I'll be concentrating on spreadsheets as the main focus, with other niggly sort of questions from input devices, batch processing, and the last question of the paper. Okay, so on this question, it says hospitals often use computers continuously monitor patients. The pulse rate of the patients is one measurement that will be monitored. List 3 other measurements that will be monitored. Okay, the list of sensors that come up on an ICT paper are the main 3 is pressure, light, heat, such as temperature, or sound. Okay, this requires some knowledge about sensors specifically used in hospitals, so those types of sensors might not be appropriate. So I'm just going to draw a quick box. So this is for 3 marks, and then for the answer, okay, what we have is we have temperature, because that's one way of measuring the temperature of your body. We have blood pressure sensor, so the pressure of the blood circulating. We have glucose level. Okay, so glucose level is if you're on diabetes, you can quickly check one measurement of how much sugar there is in your body. Rate of respiration, and level of oxygen in the patient's blood. So these are the type of measurements that you would get in a hospital. The other sensors you need to be aware of could be humidity, such as water vapour in the air. This is used in swimming pools and greenhouses. You could have infrared sensor. This is for radiation, body heat. This is also used in security alarm systems, very advanced and very far-fetched, but nonetheless. You could have light sensors, okay, so mainly for security systems. You could have a pH sensor. A pH would test the acidity in maybe the soil, and this would be quite good in environmental environments or for checking the river pollution. Pressure sensor, quite common. This is also used in hospitals, but mainly in burglar alarm systems, or you might experience them through automatic doors when you step on something. A smoke detector could be used in offices, sound for security, and touch. Okay, so if, say for instance, a object or robot bumps into the wall, okay, it could be used to control robots to avoid that from happening. And now looking at the diagram below, we look at draw 4 lines to match the storage medium in the most appropriate use in the list. So a fixed hard disk, you would check through, and if you're definitely sure you've got the right one, then be confident in selecting that as your answer. So a fixed hard disk, looking at the possible options, you've got transfer files from one computer to another. It's going to be very difficult when it's fixed. Batch processing, possibly, but it's not the biggest storage device. Store operating systems, well, that's what you need in order to start or boot up the computer. So I'm definitely going to go with that one. Okay, a DVD-ROM. DVD-ROM, we know it can be used for transferring, but encyclopedias, you're more likely to have a publisher sell their services or encyclopedia product on a CD-ROM. Okay, so that would be for there. A pen drive is definitely to transfer files. That is the whole purpose of a pen drive, for you to save something, carry it with you in your pocket or bag, and then open it onto another device. And then finally you're left with magnetic tape, which leaves you with batch processing applications. This question, it's in the middle of the paper. A customer uses a bank card to purchase a product at a supermarket checkout. The checkout operator uses a number of devices to input data about the customer and their product. Identify these input devices, and for each one describe a different item of data that will be inputted. So you've got quite a lot of marks here. You've got 8 marks. So what they want you to do is identify the device first, and what type of data will that device input. Okay, so if I just make a box first of all, and here we have the answer displayed. So the first device that we'll talk about is the chip reader. Now the chip reader is where a customer would put their bank account card, and the device would use the card to transfer the information, such as the code. The next one is a barcode reader. Okay, so quite obvious that the barcode reader is used to scan the product label to identify the product number. So every product has a barcode. If not, it can't be a genuine item. The next one is you could have electronic scales. Okay, you might seem that far-fetched, but when you buy your fruits and vegetables, all of this needs to be on electronic scales, which is then tagged with the weight and probably the price of that item. We have a touchscreen. You can now have kiosks in supermarkets where you self-checkout your own items, and you may want to click the touchscreen to input that you're ready for your products to be scanned and ready to pay. We have a number pad. This is probably the most common one you've seen. So where some barcodes can get damaged, okay, due to water or hard to reach, the number pad is used for the clerk to input the barcode number. And finally, we have the magnetic strip, which is almost similar to the chip reader, but if you imagine the credit card has a magnetic strip on the back, and this has information embedded on that magnetic strip, which the magnetic strip can automatically read and send to the EPOS system. So all in all, this is 8 marks, which should be easy to achieve if you know your input devices clearly enough. In this question we have describe batch processing of data using the processing of bank checks as an example. When we are talking about the processing of data, there are 3 types. There's batch processing, there is real-time, transaction, or online processing. Okay, so there's 3. There's a real-time process control, but that won't appear in your exam. So the difference between the ones that it's not requesting is real-time transaction processing. Is something that requires online processing, i.e. it might be done electronically. This would be something like a train booking system or a cinema or a concert, where if you allocate a seat on a plane, that's another person won't be able to block out the seats that you've requested. So this is real time that it's happening in. If you think of the other real time processing, this is happening in the real world but not necessarily online. Okay, so it's a different type of real time action. So say for instance your car pulls up to traffic lights. That traffic light might have a sensor to sense the car at the lights, and then the lights turn to green to allow you to go. Another type of real-time sensor would be a burglar alarm system. When you walk into a room, it senses you're there, and therefore the alarm turns on. The batch processing is different in that it's where a number of tasks or jobs are collected together over a set period of time. So what they're asking you to do is give an example of how a bank check would be used. So if I just draw myself a white box, so for 4 marks, what we need to do here is, with batch processing, it's done in one go. So the checks are collected together during the course of the day, and then what normally happens is when everyone's gone home from work, the system is not as busy as it was in the day. So normally what happens is these data checks are processed all at once, and they usually do it overnight, and that's what you need to say. Okay, so the bank accounts update the following morning. So what's really good about this is no human intervention is required. So if you've got to imagine, all the checks are processed overnight by batch processing when the systems have got not much work to do. Looking at the next question, we have for 4 marks, or 3 marks, we have explain why the booking of online tickets using batch processing would not be a good idea. So this requires some knowledge of the other types of processing, but as you know now why batch processing is done overnight, as explained earlier, we now need to look at why it would not be a good idea. So if I just paste in the answer. So what we have now is, if we're going to use batch processing as a form of booking airline tickets, we know now that it's done all at once overnight. So if you imagine there's a good deal for a holiday, so you have 200 customers booking that holiday in the day, what happens overnight? It will definitely lead to overbooking. Okay, that plane only has so many seats it can hold and it can sell, so it may lead to double booking. Also, you'd like to know straight away that your ticket has been confirmed. So the problem is you would not know as a customer until the next day whether your booking was successful. This would then lead to having to wait a very long time to get your ticket. People get their tickets now immediately because the system's so efficient and advanced, and processing would take a very long time. Okay, if you had the holiday booked on a Friday and you had to wait the next morning, okay, the system would not work maybe for the weekend because nobody's working, so you might not be able to receive that till the Monday. So processing would take a very long time. Okay, in this question we look at the made spreadsheet question. So a sports science student had to analyse the performance of athletes after the 2012 Olympic Games. He created a spreadsheet to do this. Below is his analysis of the shot put events. It is split into 2 sheets. So this is sheet 1. It contains the code for each nationality. Code, nationality. Sheet 2 contains the elite of athletes and the results they achieved in events since the Olympics in sheet 2. He included the distance achieved by the 2012 Olympic gold medal winners. So if we look at sheet 2, we have the Olympians here at the top, we have the record, and we can quickly see that this is in formula view. We have a lookup function used, and we have if statements if they've broke the world record or not. Okay. So what they want us to do with this spreadsheet, okay, is explain what the function in cell A8 in sheet 2 does. So if we go back and have a look, we can see that in sheet 2 we have in A8 the lookup function. Okay, so we have a lookup function, and you can see here the lookup function is looking at C8 in sheet 1 and it's looking at A2 to B12. So if I go back to sheet 1, you can see here that A1 to B12 is exactly the table array. So this is what you need to say in that question paper. You are going to use a lookup to look at the cells A1 to B12. So here's how you do it. And we have 2 actual ways of doing this. So you actually just explain for 3 marks the lookup function. Okay, you won't actually get a mark for that, but it's just a nice way to start. The lookup function will look through the cells A2 to B12 in sheet 1. So what the lookup does is it will compare the contents found in C8. So the code RUS, for instance, in sheet 2 will look at A2 and bring out the country from B12. Another way of explaining it is the function reads the contents of C8 RUS in sheet 2. It compares the contents of A2 to B12 in sheet 1 until it finds the first matching value. So the code for Russia might not necessarily be in A2, but it might be somewhere in between those cells. So until it finds a match to C8, which is code RUS, it records the corresponding value from column 2 from the data array, which is sheet 1. So you might want to say that it will display the following result when the match has been found, and the record it should show would be Russia, and that is the code RUS for Russia. In this question, it's saying what would you expect to see in A12. If you go back to the example, you can see that the table array should bring out the answer America just by analysing the spreadsheet in sheet 1 table array to sheet 2. Finally, explain what the function in cell F8 in sheet 2 does. So you want to explain the function. So functions come in various ways. The ones you need to know for your ICT exams are sum, which is a total of values, average, finding the average of particular values, maximum, minimum, integer, which is a whole number. You may use rounding, so to round a number to either the highest or lowest. Counting, you count the number of cells in a spreadsheet. A lookup comes as a lookup itself. A VLOOKUP, which is a vertical lookup. So the example on this paper is a vertical lookup, which is kind of the most popular one they use in past papers. And HLOOKUP, which is the same principle, it just looks at values horizontally. You should know how to use ifs and nested ifs. So what they want you to do is they want you to explain the lookup function for this particular question. Now this is worth 4 marks, so it is worth knowing this. So I've brought up the spreadsheets up very quickly, and we wanted F8, so F8, okay, so we just match that up. So we're looking at this if statement, so we need to explain what the if statement does. If I zoom in a bit, we're going to explain how this works. Now then, as this is worth 4 marks, I think it's important to get this right. So if I just bring up the answer. So as there is only 2 possible ways of doing this, there's a male and female. In this if statement, you don't need to have a female in the if statement. So what it'll do, it'll ignore, okay, the male part of it. If it will look in D8, and obviously there's no female in all the D8s or in the D code column. So if any males are not found, it will automatically look at the female section. So if it doesn't see male, it ignores this condition here, and it will apply this condition. So in D4 is the woman's record breaking. So it's saying is this cell greater than this cell, which is a record breaking value, and you want to say yes if it's true or no if it's false. So that's 2 marks. However, if in cell D8 it does register the word male, it will carry out this if function. So it's going to say if the value in E8 is greater than the value in D3, which is a record breaking value, you want it to say yes, which is the true value. If it's no, it returns back a no. So that's how you explain this. So the basically it's checking whether that value there is bigger than the contents of this one here. So this is called absolute cell referencing, because in that cell is the male record, okay, and in the other cell is the female record. So when you are over that value, it should return yes as the record. So here I would advise you to write 4 or 5 statements to ensure you get this answer correctly. This one can be easily forgotten. I find that students who have little practice with command line interfaces struggle to understand what this question is asking for. Now there's 3 marks, so it is worth knowing what the difference is. So the ones that you are used to on a daily basis is called a GUI, graphical user interface. In this answer, what the examiners are looking for is the drawbacks of a command line interface. Now you might know this as being MS-DOS or command prompt, as it's now referred to. Programming language, for instance, is a good example of a command line interface, because what you're doing is you are simply typing in commands into the computer. So that is one drawback of a command line interface, is you need to physically type in the commands. If you type that command in incorrectly, you have something called syntax. Syntax is the language that the computer is restricted to. So if you type in that command incorrectly, that means it will not understand the command. So syntax is the word used to have the correct commands. If you put the commands in, you can't then go back and change that command. Once you press enter, it's been commanded. So there's no way of going back, there's no edit undo as such. And with command line interface, it's very hard to master, because you have to learn a lot of commands exactly as it's meant to be, and it's not very familiar. So it's not as easy as a GUI where you can just go to file and open. You need to know the file location of a file and put in the correct syntax to find and open that file. So here we have 5 possible answers for a 3-mark question. And we'll end with optical and magnetic disks. This is used to store computer data. Give 2 uses of optical disks, and each use give a reason why they're preferred. So where earlier we looked at input devices, okay, there's quite a few marks available for this. There's 4 marks, and this is about storage devices. So if we just bring up the answers for you. Now, with optical disks over magnetic tapes are an old way of storing data. So straight away, companies are going to be more towards optical disks for selling their software or games. Okay, you know, you go to a shop, I don't think you've ever seen a magnetic tape on the shelves. Okay, because it's a cheap method of production. When you buy an optical disc, okay, it's quick to access the data. Alright, you have something called direct access. So an optical disc allows you to access certain parts of that disc, whereas a magnetic tape is serial, in that if you want to go back to a particular part of a music track, you press rewind, and vice versa. If you want to go ahead, you have to press fast forward. However, with optical discs, you can go to any track at any point you wish. This comes up nicely to our next point. It's much easier to back up information onto optical discs, because you might not be in a position or be lucky enough to have 2 computers or 3 computers. So it's not possible for you to store your information from one computer to another. Okay, where an optical disc, you'll still be allowed to back up your data just using a CD, DVD or Blu-ray disc. You just got to make sure that your DVD drive is RW compatible, which means rewritable. So it's cheap to buy these blank discs. It's very quick to retrieve data, whereas if you wanted to store your data on a magnetic tape, it's very expensive to buy the device and the tape itself. And for a third reason, you can download and copy media such as films and music to be stored on optical discs. Magnetic tapes would be the old VHS tapes, which are now obsolete. So it's going to be very hard for you to buy these types of discs in a shop because they're not being sold anymore. So with the optical discs, you do find that the speed of these are much quicker. You can go to particular scenes and tracks, and with CD, with CD, DVD or Blu-ray, you have the HD quality, compatibility and possibilities. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.